Hi, my name is Vitaly Sharavatov and I'm a developer advocate at Qase. This will be a series of videos on the economics of testing and the testing strategy. The first one is the overview one of the whole series. In this video I want to argue that testing is never a cost, but rather an investment in risk reduction. Ages ago, when I worked for Badoo, the huge dating app, we had not only manual testers or exploratory testers who were actually using the app on their phones. We also had emulators, and we had our automated tests running on emulators. And we had our automated tests running on the laboratory of physical devices of the phones. When people were asking me if we needed all this diversity of testing, I always said, yeah, of course. I mean, more testing means higher quality, right? And yet, I'm not sure if that's the right case. Maybe in that particular company, for that particular product, we did need all the diversity of testing approaches we had. Or maybe we didn't. So how do we reason about this? In software testing, the question, how much testing is enough? How much testing do we need? Is one of the most common questions asked and argued about a lot on forums, Reddit, and everywhere. And the question itself sounds quite reasonable, but I would argue that it's a wrong question, because it kind of assumes that testing is a quantity problem. The more the better, or the less is worse. And then, of course, it then leads to arbitrary answers, like we need 80% of test coverage, or we need 20% of our sprint devoted to testing, or we need 2 testing stages before release. In my opinion, the right question would be which risks justify which investments. Take this as an example. If you work for a company which produces automatic insulin pumps, those devices that you put on your shoulder if you have diabetes type B, and these devices control the dosing of the insulin and the frequency of the injections. So a defect in this device can easily kill a patient. And this is why production of those devices is so heavily regulated in pretty much every country. For instance, in the US, it's regulated by FDA. It must comply with ISC 62304 standard, if I remember correctly. It's got so much compliance to be covered. And then take a corporate content management system, like an internal blog for 50 employees. What might happen if there is a defect? Well, formatting can go wrong, blog posts can disappear, but you can recover them from a backup. No one's gonna die, for sure. No one's gonna be even fined for this. So these synthetic examples, these 2 different products, require a completely different approach to testing. And so the question, how much testing do we need, is absolutely meaningless without understanding what risks we as the business have, product that we're developing and building can impose on the clients and users. With the insulin pump, we might need, again, I'm not a specialist in that area, I'm just thinking about it out loud. We might need formal verification, multiple stages of review of both the code and the hardware, exhaustive safety testing, regulatory evidence to be provided to the officials and to the standards bodies. With the CMS, we might just need some exploratory testing and maybe a set of smoke tests automated. I don't know, again, for each company, for each product, we have defined first which are the risks we care for the most. So same question, what types of testing, how much do we need to test, and completely different answers depending on the different risks. So testing strategy must always follow from the risks, not from how much, not from any amount. And now let's get back to what testing is. In my opinion, which is supported by ISO standards, testing is an appraisal activity. Testing is some kind of an analytical activity. We take, as testers, something that is being produced or that's been produced already, and we analyze it, we test it. We produce evidence about risks. We take this insulin pump apart, we test it in different scenarios, in -40 centigrade and +30 centigrade, with this skin type and that skin type. We expose defects and failure modes. We expose what can go wrong. And testing does not reduce the risks on its own. I mean, We're just giving the information, we're just producing the evidence. Then this evidence must be acted upon. If an insulin pump, for instance, doesn't work under -60 centigrade, the production part of the company must decide, what do we do with that? Is it an edge case for us? Do we still have to comply and make sure that the device works under these circumstances or not? In any case, testing just provides learning and evidence. And this is why I like to frame testing as an investment. If we speak about economics, investment has a very good definition. It is any asset obtained at a certain cost, we buy it, on the expectation that it will deliver future value greater than the cost we paid. And in my opinion, testing fits this very, very nicely. We spend resources, tools, effort, time now to reduce the probability and the impact of costly failures tomorrow. So we need to produce evidence now that this insulin pump that we are building will not kill the patients. In our normal life, for instance, we purchase insurance. We pay premiums hoping that the bad situation, the bad occasion never happens, right? It seems that we waste the money, but we don't. We reduce the risk of costly failure later. If nothing bad happens, we are just happy. Or another example, like let's say you live in a city, you go to your office every day on a bus, and chances are you won't be diving scuba diving insurance, because you know that during your commute to work in the bus, you're not gonna be scuba diving, right? So there is little risk, if absolutely no maybe risk, that you're gonna be underwater. Or let's take another example. If you work in construction, you're gonna be investing extensively in insurance and safety precautions. We know the risks, that is why we invest. So same with preventive healthcare. We do checkups, let's say once a year, not because we are sick, but because we know that catching problems early will be much cheaper than treating them later. And so again, testing investment decision can be only based on risks. We must agree what risks we have as the company with the product, and only then we can decide how we can get evidence about the state of our product, how we can test the product. What's also interesting is that the return on testing cannot be guaranteed. We're just estimating the value. We can't estimate the certainty of the risk happening. We're working with probabilities. So we shouldn't be talking about testing costs, but we should be talking about that we are investing so much money and effort and time to reduce exposure to certain risks. And also, with testing, there is the law of diminishing returns, as with pretty much any other investment. With the checkups, with health checkups, for instance, we don't do checkups every month, right? We only do them annually or every half a year. Annually, doing them annually is a good investment. We can catch a disease, if we are unlucky, quite early and treat it well. But if we are doing them every month, we're going to be spending maybe too much. So like any investment in risk reduction, testing has diminishing returns. We first test for the highest impact problems, and then we add more tests for lower impact problems. So with our insulin pump, we first must make sure that our dosage control and our frequency controller works really well, so that we don't kill the patients. Then we can test for usability and any other lower impact risks for this particular product. And at some point, adding more testing will just cost us more without yielding us any more good evidence about the risks. So this is why we can't answer how much testing with a number. We just can't. It depends on which risk you prioritize first. So testing is a portfolio. It's not a pile of activities. Let's do code reviews, let's do automated testing, let's do exploratory testing. No, it's not like that. First, we define the risks, then we select a mix of activities, testing types, methods, approach, techniques to get the maximum risk reduction for the money and effort we are spending. So if we consider testing as an investment portfolio, we first must agree what we are investing against, what risks. Then we need to Well, actually, we need to come up with a list of risks, but that's very hard. Sometimes it's very hard. Thinking about regulations risks require you to know all the regulations, so you must invite an expert to that. And what can help us here in brainstorming the risks? ISO 25010. It defines 8 product quality characteristics. These are the easiest risk categories we can reason about. It has functional suitability, performance, efficiency, compatibility, usability, reliability, security, maintainability, and portability. We'll talk about them later. If we think about our insulin pump, what would be the most important quality characteristics to consider? Certainly reliability, that it still works after a few hours. Functional suitability, that it actually does what it's intended to do. Security, that no one can hack into it, for instance, and kill you. And reliability. Again, reliability is the key here. It must work. So we can use this ISO 25010 list of quality characteristics as the risk categorization principle. If we are to build this portfolio of testing approaches which we want to use to reduce our risks, first we realize, quantify, identify the risks. Maybe we can think about risks even as fears. Maybe you can ask your sales folks, what's your biggest fear? What might happen to the company in your opinion? Then we convert them to explicit risk statements. If our device kills a patient, first, we're gonna hate ourselves. We're gonna just quit the company. Second, we're gonna be fined. Third, we're gonna be put in jail. Fourth, we're gonna lose the business. For each of a risk statement, we can have estimated impact. What does it mean for this company to lose their certification in this area, for instance? So as soon as we identify and quantify the risks, we can then categorize and prioritize them. Put them into quality characteristics categories or invent your own if you're a specialist in risk assessment, doesn't matter. But you have to prioritize the risks. As I've said, risk management and testing has the law of diminishing returns. We need to draw the line where we stop investing. So in order to do that, we need to rank our risk categories by exposure, likelihood and impact. How likely is it gonna happen that if we have this switch or if we have this network router that we might be hacked, and what will be the impact of us being hacked? So we identify and quantify risks, we categorize and prioritize them, then we need to decide where, how much and how to actually test against those risks. How to get this evidence that our product has lower chance of this risk happening. I will speak about testing types, levels, techniques and practices in a separate video. And the fourth step is to review and rebalance. Any portfolio, any investment portfolio is never going to be efficient if it's set in stone forever. If you're into stock options, you know you have to monitor the stocks. You have to monitor the prices for them and then rebalance your portfolio. Sell something, buy something else. Same with risk management and testing. You need to regularly assess if the portfolio that you have, if all the testing efforts you're investing is still reducing the right risks, and if it's still reducing the right risks cost effectively. So this cycle keeps getting your testing strategy aligned with business priorities. And this is very important in my opinion, because I believe we can use risk assessment and speaking about testing from the economical terms as the universal language between us and the managers, us and other stakeholders. And this will allow us to get our improvement suggestions approved with much higher chances. If you just come to a manager and ask them for investing into automation or into security audit, they might just think, whatever, I don't have enough money, I don't want to go and justify additional spend on that. But if you frame the whole discussion through the risk management perspective, chances are you will get approved. And this is where the rest of this series will lead us to. So keep subscribed and like the videos on YouTube. Thank you.